Hello everyone, hope you're well. Welcome back to the channel. So in this video, I just want to talk a little bit about feedback versus failure. So the word failure sounds quite negative. It doesn't seem like a good thing. However, if we turn the word failure into feedback, we can start to look at failure in a more positive light. Because really, failing or not getting a result is all part of the learning process. And it's super important that when we come up against a situation where the result is not as good as we wanted it to, we really need to look at it and analyze it and try and figure out why things didn't go the way that we planned, or what could we have done to have made it even better. Because the reality is we're always learning, we're always growing, and there's always going to be times when you do things that just don't turn out the way they need to, especially early on when you're learning a new skill. So one of the things that I think I did, which really helped develop my technique, my understanding, my knowledge, is first of all, I had a thirst for knowledge, right? I actually sacrificed a lot of time in order to learn new things. So I was on YouTube, I was looking at books, I was buying magazines. I was constantly trying to gain as much information and make myself more knowledgeable on the topic that I was studying. And then that led into actually physically practicing, trying out or taking the knowledge, taking the theory and putting it into practice. But then after that, also looking at the results and trying to understand what I've done and how I could make it better. And I think that's really important that a lot of people tend not to do. In those moments of when things go wrong, that is sometimes where most of the learning comes from. Because if you're not analytical, if you're not self-critical, if you're not self-reflective, then how are you going to progress and improve as a creative or a photographer, videographer? How are you going to get better? Now, working as an educator, working with students, working with children who are learning photography, videography, media, storytelling, all that kind of thing, being critical in a very positive and productive way is part of my everyday job. And we try and teach the children and try and encourage them to become self-critical and self-regulate what they're doing and try and understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. And once they've completed it, what could they have done better? Or if they would have tried X, Y, and Z, how would it have changed the outcome? So the main thing I want you to leave with from this video is, number one, you've got to remember that time is super important and everything will progress and improve over a period of time. But you've got to actually want to improve, you've got to actually identify what needs to be improved, and then you've got to try and figure out or work out what you need to put in place in order for that improvement to happen. Do you need more practice with lighting? Do you need to go and buy a mannequin, get that in the studio, work with different light patterns and ratios until you understand that? Do you need to go on a course? Do you need to watch more tutorials? You need to set an action plan. If you really want to learn something or become good at something, you need to put in practice some kind of plan, some kind of strategy to get you there. So number one, you've got to remember you've got to give yourself time, but you've also got to be willing to put in the time and sacrifice the time in order for you to get what you want at the end. And then number two, try and be as positive and as reflective as possible. No matter what you're doing, whether you think it's a success or you think it's a failure, try and look at both of them as an opportunity to learn. If you've done something good and it worked out well, exactly the same. Why did it work out well? What did you do? Try and always be reflective on the things that you think you've done well and the things that you think haven't gone so well. And then number three, don't be afraid to ask other people for their opinion on your work. So in school, when we're teaching, we do portfolio critiques, we do portfolio reviews. We have the students bring their work in a group and share their work and communicate what they've done in their work, and then they allow feedback from all the other people that are in the group, and they take that feedback on, they write it down and they look at it and they see, is some of that feedback going to help them improve? What are other people seeing that you might have missed? And this is really important because, as you know, if you're looking at an image for too long, you start to miss things and you come back to it a couple of hours later and then you start to see things. But that's all well and good, but if you stand totally away from it and have somebody else come in, totally new pair of eyes, they can give you an insight which could be quite different from yours, and it can actually be quite productive at times. That's not to say that every single time someone might come and look at your work and say something and it needs improving, because it might not. But what I'm saying is you should be quite open to having other people critique your work And obviously the biggest critic, it should be yourself, because I think if you're not critical of yourself, then you kind of become complacent or you wrap yourself up in a bubble. The main thing is be positive. Don't see failure as failure. See it as an opportunity to feed back to yourself. Learn from your mistakes. Learn from your experiences, and always try and better yourself. I constantly look at new videos on YouTube. I've got people whose work I follow on Vimeo. I absolutely adore their work. I'm constantly trying to learn new things, trying to push myself, trying to try new things. And it's not always easy, especially if you're working and you've got family. You don't always have the time, but if you really want to become good at something, something has to give. There has to be an element of sacrifice. You have to sacrifice or invest some time. And I think the skill generally is being able to balance everything. Give everything its needed amount of time in order for you to have a balance. Anyway, I know this is kind of a little bit different from my normal videos. I just wanted to get that out there. I do run workshops. I do work with students. I do work with beginners. I also have a very big network of photographers and videographer friends that are on Instagram. And you know, I've had photographers contact me for critique about their work. I've contacted other photographers and asked them to look at my work and tell me where they think I could improve. And I think that's really healthy. I don't think there's anything wrong or negative about that. Yeah, that's it. Hopefully you found the video useful. If you like this kind of thing, just let me know. If you've got some comments you want to throw down below regarding this video, your opinions, what do you think about feedback versus failure? How are you improving? How are you getting better? What do you think you need to do to take your work to the next level? It'd just be really good to hear from any of you. Thanks for watching. See you later.